Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel. Today we're going to look at some online tournament results in today's video and see what decks are winning in the most recent online tourneys. I think this information is pretty important as San Antonio is coming up next weekend and I am actually going to be going to San Antonio. So I actually do want to look at what decks are performing well in these online tourneys. I haven't really been playing in any online tourneys recently or anything, and I do want to kind of gather some information here from some of the most recent online tournaments to see what could be good for San Antonio, because San Antonio is going to be a massive tournament. I want to see what the meta looks like, what decks are being played, and all that stuff, what techs are being used. And it's a great opportunity to do this, as I haven't done one of these online tourney videos in a while, so I think it's time to try it out again here. I'll leave a link to Play.Limitless down below if you want to go check out the online tourneys yourself, and maybe you want to play in one. There's like a free tournament almost every single day on the website, so definitely go check it out down below. And also, if you're new here to the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below. Of course, we are on the road to 10,000 subs. We are now less than 500 away from 10K. So if you haven't subbed yet and you enjoy the content here on the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below. It would be greatly appreciated. But let's take a look here. So starting this off, we got the Tournament of Doom. Now, this meta does feel like we are in an open meta where there can be like a variety of decks. It actually feels like you can play anything right now and do well with it. Like, it actually feels like it's more of like a meta where you pick your favorite deck and do well with it. Because with all the different matchups you can technically hit right now, it does feel like it doesn't feel like a centralized something like the Silver Tempest format. But the winning deck in this Tournament of Doom was, of course, Lost Tina, which is a pretty strong deck right now in our format. Obviously, Giratina is going to continue to probably do well because it's just a very straightforward, consistent deck. It's got a really good Charizard matchup, which I think is why it does so well right now, because its Charizard matchup is so favored, and Charizard is very popular right now. So Giratina just is going to continue to keep doing well. The runner-up deck here we did have was a Charizard deck, but look at that. Now, it was a Charizard deck playing a Sylveon V. Now, it's not playing Sylveon VMAX, which I've seen before, but the idea behind Sylveon V is it allows you to grab an item and then end your turn. So, Sylveon gets you a rare candy. That's pretty much all. It'll get like rare candy or Ultra Ball. You get like a rare candy or Ultra Ball with Sylveon's ability. Your turn ends, and then the following turn, if you don't get Iono'd, you can use that to get yourself into Rare Candy Pidgeot, Rare Candy Charizard. So, Sylveon's definitely cute. There's a lot of different Pokemon that these Charizard decks have been playing, like Entei, Rotom, Pidgeot V. Obviously, now we got Sylveon seeing a bit of play. It did get second place, probably obviously lost to the Giratina deck, as Giratina can be a tough matchup for Charizard. It's very favored for Giratina. We actually have a Goldengo in top 8. You always love to see it. It feels like Goldengo is really just waiting either for the right card or for the right meta to actually be like a decent archetype. Like, it's not bad. I actually don't think Goldengo's a terrible deck. Is it like top 10 best deck in the format? Probably not. I don't even know if it's top 15 best deck in the format. Actually, maybe it is. But point is, Goldengo just feel like it's always on the bubble of being good and being somewhat of a meta deck. But seeing it do well in these online tourneys are pretty cool to see. And this Goldengo deck is very straightforward, just playing the Scizor and the Goldengo. Playing 4 workers for the main draw supporter and the 3 Pokestop. Just really trying to go turbo, get the energy, attack with Goldengo. And Goldengo doesn't seem bad right now. Like, I actually don't think it has the worst matchups right now in general with what's popular in our format. There was a Miraidon in top 4. This one is playing 15 Lightning and the Peony. So it is the Peony Miraidon deck. 15 energy is still a lot to play, even with the Peonies. Like, 15 energy is still a lot. You're not playing 18, but you still have 15, which is still a lot. And there's also the double turbos to try to get those Iron Hands attacking. You also got that Mew EX, which can synergize with double turbo. I think the only downside with this list is there's a 1-1 Flaffy as opposed to a 2-2. So if you have to lose a Flaffy early on, or your opponent KOs a Mareep or something at some point in the game, you don't have a Flaffy for that game. So that's like maybe the only downside of playing the 1-1 Flaffy, but it is just that super turbo, try to get turn 1 Iron Hands Miraidon deck, which, I mean, hands wins games. There is a Roaring Moon in top 8. Another deck right now that does feel like it's kind of in the bubble of being like a kind of a meta deck. I know Roaring Moon sees a lot of play in the Lost Zone decks, and I think that's mostly where we're going to see Roaring Moon be good at the moment, is just really with the Lost Zone. It feels like the Lost Zone really does favor Roaring Moon, but Roaring Moon can still work in its own turbo deck. It's just Turbo Roaring Moon is more linear, more straightforward, and I think its matchups are a little bit more awkward, but Roaring Moon definitely is still good, and it's not like the worst deck you can play, right? And it got top 8. And we got another Charizard in top 8 here. This one was another Pidgeysard playing the Entei V in the deck over Rotom or the Sylveon. Entei I still like quite a bit. Just, again, being a nice, big, basic attacker can actually come in handy. I've actually used Entei a lot while playing Entei with Charizard because it allows you to just have, like, another mini attacker. Because you would be, like, sometimes you're just not able to get Charizards and play every single turn. You need the support of something like Entei to help you out. Though I think if you're going to play something like Entei, you probably have to play Penny or Turo, just because the Entei has it's a liability a lot of the time. I guess you have like the collapsed stadium, but still, Entei is a pretty good attacker. I'm still a fan of it. I think Entei is still good. It helps a lot against like Giratina. It's good it's good against most matchups. It's a nice big attacker that, if your opponent isn't letting you set Charizards up, at least you have Entei as a fallback option. At least put some pressure on the opponent. You know what I mean? Another Miraidon. Looks like just the LAIC Miraidon deck here. Pretty straightforward stuff. And then the final deck in top 8 is everyone's favorite deck, Snorlax Stall, which is still continuing to do good right now. I think Snorlax Control will always be a good deck right now in our format, mainly just because like either one, decks are not respecting or teching for it, and B, the decks that are good right now have bad matchups into Snorlax. Like Charizard, for example, has a bad Snorlax matchup. I think really all Snorlax has to worry about right now is like if people actually do tech for it, like hard tech for it, like Minior is a good counter to Snorlax, but it's not always going to be the best counter to Snorlax. Because Snorlax can play around Minior, in my opinion. A lot of lists, like Snorlax can literally play Mawile, and then Minior, like, it gets countered completely. Like, Mawile Defiance Vest beats Minior. So, Minior is not the perfect counter to Snorlax, but it is definitely it's definitely out there. And then, of course, Giratina, Lost on variants in general are difficult for Snorlax. But, I mean, we're probably going to continue to see Snorlax do well. Outside the top 8, I do want to look at the Palkia deck here, because Palkia has got a bit of a resurgence thanks to the list from Gdansk. And yeah, this is the Palkia Ice Rider deck. It looks like it might be the exact 60 from Gdansk. Everything checks out. Definitely not a bad archetype at all. I definitely think Palkia Ice Rider is pretty strong. I think its worst matchup is going to be Charizard, right? Charizard is going to be the matchup you're going to struggle with the most, potentially struggle with the most, but yeah. Other than that, Palkia still seems good. All right, next up, we got the late night. There's 2 late nights. We got late night 157 and 158. And it looks like the top two decks in this late night were Guardy. Guardy continuing to be a very strong deck. Is Guardy the BDIF right now, though, is the question. Honestly, I don't know. I don't even think there is a BDIF at the moment. I actually think, with the way the format is, I don't think there is a best deck in format. And we'll talk about a little bit more of that later this week for my San Antonio content. But I definitely think Gardevoir is still very much a top deck, but maybe not the best deck. But there were 2 Guardies here, back-to-back in top 2. Pretty similar stuff here with the Avery and stuff like that. All right. And then we got a Charizard here in top 4. Like, Charizard is really strong, and it looks like it's just kind of like Robin's list with the Avery and the Rotom. But yeah, Charizard is good. The funny thing is, Charizard actually has a bit of an awkward Guardian matchup. If Gardevoir sets up perfectly, it just beats Charizard. Charizard's Guardian matchup is not great. I think that's like the main issue with Charizard right now, is its Guardian matchup is a little shaky. But it's definitely not the worst thing ever. Like, it's still winnable, and we are seeing this Charizard influx happen due to this Charizard being strong. It's got a good matchup spread, and its Guardy matchup, well, I think slightly unfavored for Charizard, can still, you can still win it. Like, if Guardy misses a turn, something gets huge. There was another Palkia in top 4, and it looks like it's, once again, Palkia Ice Rider. It looks like it cut the Suicune and the Collapse Stadium, though, in favor of an extra Vacuum and an Iono. And I like that. I think, like, the Palkia deck should probably play some kind of an Iono. Like, not playing Iono in the Palkia deck did seem strange when I saw it. Because I'm like, don't you want to play Hand Disruption? Like, I don't know. Like, not having Hand Disruption seems a little sus, but I do like that one of Iono. I think the one of Iono is pretty good. Not playing the Suicune is fine. Ideally, what you want to do is, if you're not getting that turn 1 attack, you can just sit behind, like, a Mew or something for a turn, and then go Palkia the following turn. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, Palkia is a strong archetype, in my opinion. Again, the only thing it struggles with is ultimately just going to be Charizard, but I think Palkia is fine. Like, I think it can probably 50-50 Gardevoir if you can pull off the Cologne Cross-Switcher combo. You can, you probably beat Miraidon if you're just trading 2 for 2 the entire time, plus you have Ice Rider. Yeah, the Palkia Ice Rider deck actually seems pretty legit. It's definitely a deck that I'm keeping my eye out on, personally, because I am a huge fan of this deck. I think it's actually really cool and a lot of fun. There is a Mew in top 8, because Mew continues to be good. Now, this is a really interesting Mew deck. It's Mew with Medicham. So it's double turbo Mew, Judge Path, all that stuff. But it's also playing that one of Medicham. Interesting idea, because Yoga Loop is pretty strong. I guess the idea is like, if you don't KO something with Technoblast or whatever, you can always Yoga Loop it. I'm not sure how good the Medicham ultimately is in the Mew deck itself. I feel like if you're going to play Medicham, you probably have to play a bit of a heavier count of switching cards, just because you only have the 4 double turbos, and you have to commit a double turbo to Medicham. So I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of just the 2 ropes over no switches and no switch card, but Medicham definitely seems like a cool inclusion in Mew. I mean, Mew can really play any of these weird double turbo Pokemon. I mean, we've seen Luxray, and now we're seeing these Medicham technologies added. Now, interesting enough, there is an Arcpile deck in top 8. Now, Arcpile is a pretty dying archetype right now, unfortunately. I'm a big Arcpile fan, but there is an Arceus Coco Pikachu deck here in top 8. Now, this is really cool. Now, I don't know how good this deck actually is, and this is a deck that just randomly gets top 8 in online tourneys. Like, I'm not going to lie. I feel like in a few of these videos, we've looked at multiple Arc Coco decks, but the idea behind Coco is it paralyzes the opponent when you're behind in prizes. I guess not many decks right now really respect paralysis. Flying Pikachu isn't terrible right now against all these big basic decks. I think the downside of Arceus is just it feels like it's a bit too slow now. Like against Miraidon, right? You can get donked really easily. Even against stuff like Roaring Moon, right? If you just get Roaring Mooned early on. It is a Judge Path deck. I think that's like the selling point behind Arceus is it's a Judge Path deck. And Judge Path decks are usually pretty good right now. I don't hate it. It's definitely an interesting archetype for sure. I'm not super sold on this Arc Coco deck, but it is cool, and it did get top 8. There are some weird one-ofs in the deck. There's a Canceling Cologne, which I imagine is for Mimikyu. I guess another thing to note, I don't think this deck actually beats Snorlax at all. Like, I don't know how this deck ever beats Snorlax, because, like, you just lose to, like, 2 Mimikyus, even with the Cologne, right? So, I guess there's another thing. It's like, this deck doesn't really beat Snorlax, but it does play a Snorlax doll, which is a very weird card to see in the deck. I guess we can pull it up real quick. Now, you have to have it in your starting hand when you're setting up to play, and you can put it in your active spot as a 123 basic. Now, if you don't start with Snorlax doll, it's a dead card. So that's another like weird inclusion in this deck. I don't know, it's just a very strange list. I mean, the deck itself seems like it could be okay, but there are a lot of weird inclusions, again, like the Snorlax, the Cologne. I guess there's no Phoebe in the format, right? Actually, doesn't Phoebe exist? I wonder, wouldn't Phoebe be better than Canceling Cologne then? Because if you're playing Palpad, you could play Phoebe, right? I'm pretty sure Phoebe's still in the format. I don't think Phoebe rotated. I'm pretty sure Phoebe's in Battle Styles. Yeah, if you can play Phoebe, wouldn't that be better for the Mimikyu then instead of Canceling Cologne? I guess. Interesting. All right, in top 8, there's another Lost Tina with a Lumineon and a Forest Seal Stone and a Vacuum. I've seen some Tina lists play the Forest Seal Stone. You do sacrifice Star Requiem, which is a pretty big thing to sacrifice, but you can also get to 7 a lot quicker when you have Forest Seal Stone and Vacuum combined. That's the idea there. There was a Goodra in top 8, another deck that's just kind of like under the radar right now. I don't think Goodra's like amazing because it does struggle against like Roaring Moon, and it can really struggle against a lot of decks, to be honest, but it's not a terrible deck. I mean, Rolling Iron can be good right now. You're still chilling. I guess Iron Hands would probably body you because you can't KO Zam anymore, and then Goodra can't one-shot Hands. I guess that's like the other big matchup Goodra might struggle against is just getting hand. Like, if Goodra gets Hands turn 2 or turn 1, whatever, I don't know how Goodra beats that, to be honest. But I don't know. Goodra's okay. Not a bad deck. You know, not a great deck, but not a bad deck either. It's, you know, somewhere it's kind of chilling in the middle. It's okay. Goodra's definitely like kind of in like a bubble position right now, in my opinion. Next up, the late night 158. The winning deck was Rapid Strike. Now, I'm not going to lie. Rapid Strike looks pretty good right now. I think that looking into potentially San Antonio, Rapid Strike doesn't seem like a terrible play. I think it has a great matchup spread. It's got, in my opinion, a decent Guardy matchup. It's obviously got good Lost Zone matchups. Its Tina matchup can be 50-50 sometimes, but Tina's still beatable if you know what you're doing. I also think this deck beats Charizard because of TM Devolution. TM Devolution makes the Charizard matchup very favored, in my opinion. Or not very favored, but a little bit more winnable. It is still tough because you're using 3-prizers, but you can beat Charizard very easily sometimes. Yeah, I think you can beat Charizard. You can beat Lost Zone. Gardevoir's always been okay. I'm not going to lie. Like, Rapid Strike doesn't seem like a bad deck right now. I think the one of Spiritomb does make the Mew matchup a little tolerable. Obviously, it helps against Zard and Control, too, which are... I guess Control's like the one shaky matchup this deck has. I mean, you have the Turo and the Escape Rope, but Control is definitely going to be your shakiest matchup. Honestly, you could play a Psychic Energy in this deck. Like, that might seem like a bad meme, but, like, if you want to play Rapid Strike, playing, like, a Luminous Energy or a Psychic Energy might not be the worst thing ever, just because you can cancel... You can attack with Alakazam if Snorlax tries to stall you. I actually don't hate that. Like, a one of Psychic actually might not be a bad idea to counter Snorlax. I just thought of that, but I don't know. Rapid Strike actually seems like a good deck right now. I think it ultimately just loses to, like, really clunky draws, really awkward... you know, stuff. And also, yeah, Rapid Strike just kind of loses to itself a lot of the time. It just loses to, like, really bad draws. But it actually, like, in theory, doesn't seem like a bad deck right now. It actually seems like it has a really good matchup spread. It just feels like it just needs to get over the line of bricking. Because sometimes you just get these really awful hands. Like, I've played Rapid Strike, like, testing it and stuff, and I'm like, dude, this deck sucks. Like, I'll start with, like, a hand with, like, just a bunch of unplayable junk, and I'm like, all right, this deck sucks. But again, if the deck doesn't have bad hands, it's actually kind of insane. It actually feels like a good deck, right? So, there's 2 Tinas in top 4 here. We'll just quickly look at them because this is kind of just the same old routine with Tina. Because, like, Tina has been figured out. This one does play an Avery. and a little bit more heavy draw with the double Roxanne. So 2 more Guardies in top 8 here too. Yeah, Gardevoir, once again, just proving that it is a very powerful deck because, yeah, being able to draw a million cards a turn seems pretty good. Another Guardy, and then we got a Snorlax in top 8, the infamous Snorlax, which I guess maybe lost to a Gardevoir with Turo, because Guardy should be able to beat Snorlax if they play Turo. Yeah, Snorlax definitely just still good, right? Just it's good. You can tech for it, but Snorlax can counter the techs, not to mention it just beats decks that don't tech for it, and also just beats Charizard, so seems good. There's an Entei in top 8, another deck that does feel like it's pretty good right now. It does feel like it feels like Rapid Strike, where you're kind of relying heavily on just not having these clunky hands. And Rapid Strike can be a little less clunky than Rapid Strike, but it's a little less stronger than Rapid Strike because you're relying on, these big basic Vs instead of VMAXs, which can be a little bit more tolerable. You also don't have the type advantage of Urshifu and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Antevaliant doesn't seem terrible. Actually, the other thing I want to mention about Rapid Strike. Rapid Strike, I forgot to mention, yeah, Rapid Strike does have water and fighting, which are ironically good types right now. Fighting, Urshifu helps a lot against Miraidon, and then Inteleon just destroys Entei. So you just have a really good Entei-Valiant matchup because you have Inteleon VMAX. Yeah, the more I think about it, man, the more Rapid Strike just feels like it's actually an insane deck right now. But yeah, Entei-Valiant's also still decent. I think both of them are valid at decks for the spready type decks. There's a Giratina with a Roaring Moon. I've heard about this combo recently. Now, I'm not sure Roaring Moon is necessary in Giratina because it feels like you have to jump through more hoops to kind of get it going when you already have Giratina. But Roaring Moon is just such a strong card right now that it just has to be good. Effectively having 2 Star Requiems in a game can be very good. And I think that's actually a good selling point to play the Moon with the Tina, is just having the double Star Requiem. Having both Frenzy Gouging and Star Requiem, having 2 insta-KO effects, seems like it actually could be really good. The Roaring Moon, again, it might be a little awkward. You're not playing Water Energy, so you don't get access to Greninja, but sometimes the opponent will just immediately bench Manaphy when you're playing against Tina, so you can take advantage of that. And then your opponent just benched a free 7 HP basic for Sableye. I don't know. It's not bad. I don't hate the idea of Roaring Moon and Giratina. It feels like it could be clunky, but again, double Star Requiem seems good. Because sometimes all you have to do to win the game is use Roaring Moon and then Star Requiem. Sometimes that's all you need to do. And you don't have to commit as much to the Giratina because you only need the 2 energy to do Star Requiem. So I don't know. The Moon definitely doesn't seem terrible within the deck. And that did get top 8. Next up, we got the Battle Park tourney. Now, there was a very interesting deck in top 8 here. Now, the winning deck was, of course, Charizard EX with the Rotom and the Avery. Yeah, Charizard, again, just very strong archetype right now. Will probably fold the Snorlax, but Charizard is still very strong and is a top deck. It's probably one of the 3 best decks right now, to be honest. There's another Entei here in the finals. Entei Charizard, it can be a really close game. Even with the support of Spiritomb, the matchup is still kind of close because Charizard, if Charizard gets to set up, it's pretty tough for Entei to deal with the Charizard. The Charmanders are very easy to KO because you have the Valiant, but it does seem a little bit more difficult to get over the hurdle of dealing with the Charizard. So it can be tricky if Charizard sets up, but Entei definitely doesn't seem it can be a close one for sure. There's another Goodra here in top 4. It looks like Goodra's having a bit of a resurgence right now in these online tourneys. Well, that's interesting. Because again, I don't think Goodra's terrible. I guess Goodra's Charizard matchup seems okay because you have Sableye, you have Goodra, you have Zamazenta, which are all not terrible against Charizard. So maybe Goodra's Charizard matchup's not as bad as I thought. And I guess your matchup against Snorlax isn't terrible either. I don't know. Maybe Goodra's better than I'm giving it credit for. I don't know. I mean, you probably lose to Roaring Moon. Now, here's where things get interesting. There was an Arceus Lycanrock VMAX deck in top 4. Now, I'm not sure how good this deck actually is. It does play Liepard over something like Kirlia, which is a little strange. I guess the benefit of Liepard is it's not as weak to Sableye, because Kirlia is 80 HP, sometimes can make a difference. Lycanrock VMAX is interesting. So if you haven't seen what Lycanrock does, and this is where things get crazy. When I saw this deck, I'm like, I gotta do another online tourney video because, dude, what the heck? So Lycanrock has the attack Hunting Claw, which for one fighting, you knock out one of your opponent's Pokemon in play that has 60 HP or less remaining. So the idea behind Hunting Claw is that you can knock out Ralts, you can knock out a lot of little 6 HP basics. I mean, there's a lot out there. You can also finish stuff off that have 6 HP or less remaining. You're a fighting Pokemon, so you have an okay time into Miraidon if you can build up a Lycanrock. Is there any Hawlucha in this deck, actually? There's no Hawlucha. Huh. So that's I guess the one downside of this archetype is this deck doesn't play Hawlucha. So the idea behind Hawlucha could be good because you can use Hawlucha with Hunting Claw to knock out the 70 HP basics. I feel like that would maybe be a little bit better. No Hawlucha is definitely a little awkward or questionable. It is an interesting idea, though. Lycanrock, Arceus, hey man, it got top 4. The deck did something. So who knows? Maybe it is good. I mean, hey, maybe that's how I got top 4. It beat a couple Miraidons because there's 2 Miraidon here in top 4. It looks like we got the LAIC Miraidon, and then we got another LAIC Miraidon list here. Yeah, it looks like it maybe just beat Miraidon in top 4, and then maybe lost to Gudra, Gudra's probably unwinnable. I mean, Entei Valiant's maybe winnable. Gudra would definitely be unwinnable. I think Zard might be tough too. So another Fusion Mew here. Another deck that's still just pretty strong right now. Fusion Mew, I think, is pretty straightforward deck in the meta. I think it's good. I think it's still decent. It has an okay matchup into Spiritomb. That's kind of the selling point, I guess. And you also get like Meloetta. And there's another Tina in top 8. No Roaring Moon this time, just a more traditional, straightforward Giratina. The next tournament we got is the Deck Out Monday tournament. The winning deck was once again Giratina. This one not playing the Roaring Moon, but it is still just straightforward Tina. That's a funny name. I'm not gonna say it. It's pretty funny. And in the second place, sorry, we got another Roaring Moon. Now this one is Roaring Moon with some spice. It's got an Iron Hands in the deck. Now it's not playing any Thornton or anything. So to build up the hands, I guess you have to like max out the energy switches. Because I have seen the idea of playing like Roaring Moon with Thornton Iron Hands. Because you can like Sada to the Roaring Moon, and then like energy switch, and then eventually Thornton into it. This one's not playing Thornton though. It's relying more on the energy switch, which I don't hate. It's like it's a little more work than Greninja, because Greninja you only need 3 energy. Iron Hands needs 4 energy on it to do Ampy very much. But I guess you can like do some shenanigans. I think you can Morpeko to it, right? Yeah, you can like Morpeko, Dark Energy on Iron Hands. You can like energy switch to it. It doesn't seem like it's that hard to build up. I mean, the deck got second place. It did something right? So interesting take on Roaring Moon. That's one thing I'll say about Roaring Moon. These turbo decks is they're pretty easy to like fit like interesting inclusions into them. Like that's why we're seeing the Water Energy, the Iron Hands. Looks like we got a Snorlax in top 4. Might have lost to Roaring Moon. It's probably not the hardest matchup for Roaring Moon. And then there's another Sableye Lost Zone variant. This is the Turbo Lost Zone deck with Dragonite Iron Hands. So Lost Box definitely feels like it's in a bit of an odd spot. I mean, Iron Hands and Valiant are both big threats to it, but it does still have the ability to play more stuff like the Dragonite, like the hands. It has room still for these big basic EXs. And that's what we're seeing Lost Box kind of convert to. Is like now they're playing the Roaring Moon, they're playing the Palkia, they're playing the Iron Hands, they're still playing Dragonite V, which is still not a terrible option in the deck. The only downside of Dragonite is it's not good into Valiant. That's like the one reason why I wouldn't want to play Dragonite. If I'm playing against Entei Valiant, you do need like that big attacker that can KO Entei, but the problem is you're fueling Iron Valiant, so it feels really bad to have to use Dragonite against Entei Valiant, but it is still Dragonite still is a really good card in my opinion. It's still very strong. Speaking of Entei Valiant, look at that. We got an Entei Valiant top 8. Playing an Oricorio, it does spread 50 damage. Honestly, not a bad idea. It could be pretty good with, Tachyon Bits, because you already have the spread attack. It's playing Gift Energy too to try to not break as much, which is interesting. That's a cool tech card. There's some like niche little fire Pokemon like the Moltres and obviously the Oricorio. And here we go. We got a Rapid Strike deck, and like I said earlier, just playing that Psychic Energy. Like I said, that's not bad. Like, if you're playing at Snorlax, you can attack with Alakazam. If they try to stall it, you can just put Psychic Energy on it and attach Water. You can attack. Now, I guess they can like stall Squawkabilly, which can be a little bit more awkward, but you still have the ability to abuse that. And that seems kind of sick. But yeah, no, I definitely like Rapid Strike. Again, it feels like it's got the best matchup spread. Like I said, you got Water and Fighting, which is good against Entei and Miraidon. You have like the spread potential. You're just like, it's just a really strong deck. I feel like Rapid Strike is in a good spot right now. It just feels like it's like a big pile of a deck. Because again, you sometimes get these just trash hands. Another Double Turbo Mew, pretty straightforward Judge Path Double Turbo Mew deck here. Okay, it's playing hammers. I was like, there's no shenanigans, but there are hammers. There are the hammers in the deck to move the energy. There's a Goldengo in top 8. You always love to see it. Again, like I said, Goldengo's on the cusp. Ooh, it's a Palkia Goldengo deck. I don't hate that. Palkia's not a bad attacker to pair with Goldengo. It's a nice big attacker that can be good in the early game, and then in the late game, you do have the explosive potential of Goldengo. I guess like the good thing about Palkia being good in Goldengo is that if you're playing against like Charizard, for example, Palkia is really bad in the late game against Charizard because you're not trading very evenly into it because Charizard starts one-shotting your Palkias, but with Goldengo, you can go Palkia early on, maybe even sometimes get like a cheesy knockout with Greninja, and then the late game, you can take a one-hit KO super easily with Goldengo. So I actually really like the idea of Palkia Goldengo. That actually seems like it's pretty strong. I definitely want to test this out a little bit. Maybe do a video on it in the future. I don't know. The problem with this is like I have like 9 Palkia decks in rotation right now for content. Like you would be surprised how versatile and strong Palkia is right now. I got a lot of different Palkia deck videos in the woodworks, but this one I might put on the back burner because I do like the idea of Goldango Palkia. There's actually decent synergy between the two. Finally, we got the Redacted Paradox Tournament. The winning deck was, of course, good old Gardevoir, the Menace itself. And then there's the Snorlax, which did lose to Guardy in the finals. Again, Gardevoir can beat Snorlax if they have, like, the Turo and stuff, and if the Guardy player plays it right, it's very winnable for Gardevoir. There was a Rapid Strike in top 4. Like I said, Rapid Strike seems like it's a good deck. This one didn't look like it really respected the Snorlax, though. I mean, there's the Turo, but there's no Psychic Energy or anything. But yeah, Rapid Strike, again, it seems like it's a good deck. Actually opting for Drapion over Spiritomb. Now, Drapion might be better in Mew because if they don't play Lost City, which some lists aren't even playing Lost City, right? You can just, like, claw a Drapion, double Drapion, win the game that way, which isn't a bad idea either. I think Tomb is just probably better right now, though, because 1, if you start with Drapion, it's really bad. 2, Spiritomb does give you a better, like, time into Snorlax and a better time into Charizard, because you can shut off the Lumineon, the Rotom, stuff like that. It's not bad, though, but I do think Spiritomb's probably better. There was a, it looks like a Tord Lost Box in top 8. I was hoping to see if the Tord deck would still continue to do well post-Gdansk. It looks like it is. Actually looks like it's very much just the Tord 60. Yeah, pretty much the Tord 60. Again, this deck is definitely a lot going on, but it is a crazy deck, but it is surprisingly pretty strong. And with all the options you have and the different combos, it's a pretty good deck still. Even post-Gdansk, once kind of the cat's out of the bag, you know. There's a Bibzard here, playing the one of Delphox V. The Delphox V is spicy because sometimes you can cheese wins, especially in best of 1. And it's got the Minior to respect Snorlax. Playing the Tool Jammer. Tool Jammer is not a bad idea to play in Charizard. I guess Tool Jammer Minior can be pretty strong too. So yeah, Bibzard's still kind of doing its thing. I'm still a fan of Pidgeysard, but Bibzard isn't bad because you can kind of do some more cool things. Looks like we got another straightforward Miraidon deck here with double Iron Hands and double Turbo, and then another Miraidon top 8. Oh, we got the Peony Miraidon deck with 17 Lightning Energy and that one of double Turbo. Just trying to make it even easier to attack with hands. I don't hate that. I mean, I guess if you hit the double energy off Generator, I mean, you got 17 energy. I mean, I would hope you do, right? And then you can attach the double Turbo, and then you can do it that way. And then you can save 3 Generators instead of committing 2, sometimes even 3 to a hands. I don't hate that, actually. It's not a bad idea if you're going to play the 17 energy hands deck. And then finally in top 8, there's a Rapid Strike deck. Like I said, Rapid Strike seems like it's a good deck. You just get over the fact that the deck is just kind of a pile and a bricky mess. But there you have it, folks. That is the most recent online tourney results to look at. Again, these are pretty important. I wanted to really look at them. I haven't done one of these videos in a while. But I did want to do another one here to look at what decks were doing well in these online tourneys. There was some cool stuff. I mean, we saw a couple Arc Piles. That Lycanrock deck was kind of crazy. Like, what the heck's going on there? Definitely want to... I mean, again, it's an interesting list. I want to hear more about it, to be honest. But yeah, no, overall, I really liked the decks here that were doing well. We are seeing a lot of different diverse stuff. Again, the meta feels wide open. There are a lot of different decks you can play. Like, Rapid Strike feels pretty good. Giratina is pretty good. I think Snorlax is still good. Guardy's still good. Like, there's just so many decks right now. It's pretty crazy. We're seeing a lot of Palkia. I will say that. There were quite a few Palkia decks here. And Palkia is definitely making a bit of a run right now in the online tourneys. Mainly because Palkia's had a bit of a resurgence thanks to Gdansk. But that'll be it for me. If you enjoyed today's video here on the second channel, leave a like. I'll leave a link down below to play it out Limitless if you want to play an online tourney yourself. And hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all in another video very soon. Bye-bye.